All right, I am back here on the podcast talking college football today with Bill Bender, who covers college football for the Sporting News. Bill, welcome back. How are you?
Doing well, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. And I got to say, it's been a very interesting landscape over the last 2 weeks in college football. What's your take on how things are looking right now?
Um, I know when you do a top 25 where 54 schools in the FBS are missing, it's been a one-of-a-kind year in a lot of ways. Obviously, living in Big Ten country, it's been interesting to see the drawbacks to what has happened with the decision-making process there. And, we're just hoping for football in some fashion, but we're also hoping that football can be done safely.
Yeah, for sure. And the Big Ten was obviously the big one that's canceled. They've drawn a lot of criticism for how they're doing it, but the plan seems to be they're aiming for some sort of winter season. How do you think that will work? Because I got a feeling that a lot of people who would be NFL prospects probably wouldn't play that.
I mean, that's the I mean, how do you convince a Justin Fields to play in that setup when it's pretty clear that they're campaigning to play now? And I think Justin Fields' leadership's been pretty awesome through the whole process. But, it's one of those things that makes it tough. I think the idea of a spring season has its merit, but it also has to come with the full expectation. I've said this over and over again, that if you do that, you have to do it with the understanding that the following season will be played in its entirety. So how many games is too many in one calendar year? And it's a dicey question.
Yeah, it's a very dicey question. That's a future problem. I think the current problem for the schools are trying to play, especially like Notre Dame, North Carolina State, who've had to go virtual instruction for a while. Do you think that these schools will actually be willing to play football games if the students aren't on campus right now?
I think it's probably safer. And that's the catch-22. I was a college student once upon a time too, and made plenty of bad decisions. But you can't legislate student behavior. You can do it with the student athletes, and you can get away with some things there. And as long as you want to call it for what it is, and I think the big thing there is a lot of we know it's about the money. Everybody does. I mean, Iowa cut some programs today, so we know. But I do think there is some merit to the idea that it would be safer to not have the actual students on campus and allow those athletes to play. And you can do we can do the debate all you want, but to me, it's actually safer.
Yeah, I think in terms of actually creating kind of a bubble on your campus, I think it is safer. I think the argument people are going to have against it is, well, at this point, does it open the can of worms that the football players should be paid because they're actually more being treated differently than the other students?
Well, they should be paid. Yeah, and I think that's the other part of it that they're trying to avoid. The players' voices have grown a lot louder this offseason, and I'm saying that in a huge way. With some of the social changes that have been made by the results of efforts by guys like Kylan Hill, Chuba Hubbard, and others have been remarkable. Now, the next question is, okay, are we getting paid? And that's going to come down the line, I think. And that's why, when people talk about spring football, I think the offseason could be better spent focusing on that issue, focusing on making the game safer and planning a more organized plan for the following season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And before I get into actual storylines for on the field, one thing I want to throw out there is I do feel like that there's a lot of people out there who are claiming the media is against football happening, which I think is a load of garbage because I feel like, obviously, without the games, there's no real need for the media. So I think the idea that the media is against the sport happening is rubbish. Really, they want the players involved to be safe in this.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't play football season, I think a lot of people will lose their jobs in the media business. And it's already an uphill struggle in a lot of ways. I've been fortunate enough to be in the print and web media since I was in college. And you fear layoffs and furloughs and those kind of things in this instance. So, of course, we're not rooting against the game. I love football more than anything, other than my family maybe. And my family for sure. And then football's up there pretty high on the priority list. But it's one of those things, when I see that kind of movement that we're rooting for a safe, pragmatic return and the mental and physical welfare of student athletes. The last thing in the world I want to see is a student athlete die because they played in the COVID era, and that would be the reason why. And I'm not saying that could happen. It could happen. The chances are small, but it could happen.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I'm going to try and go a more brighter outlook here. Let's say the games get played. I think one thing that's very interesting to me is the idea that Notre Dame this year is just married the ACC for the season. And I was talking to Matt Fortuna of The Athletic earlier in the week. He raised a fun point. Like, how interesting would it be if Notre Dame finds a way to win the ACC and then they don't defend the trophy next year? That would be a very interesting outcome.
Oh, and he's exactly right, because I have plenty, as a 12-year Catholic school kid, I've got plenty of friends that root for Notre Dame, and I think that's the scenario they do want, and say, this conference life isn't for us, that kind of thing. And it is exciting to finally see them in a conference, and knowing that gives Clemson somebody to look at maybe twice. North Carolina could have a really good season with the players they got coming back, and seeing Notre Dame go to Chapel Hill, what a moment that will be for Matt Brown and his program. Notre Dame brings a lot of TV, a lot of weight with its program, and to have it in the ACC, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting to see how Clemson plays. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is very vocal about wanting to play this season, and they're coming off the loss in the title game to LSU. How motivated do you think he is to try and get that second title before he goes off to the NFL inevitably?
Trevor Lawrence has had a remarkable career. He has nothing to prove on the field. I mean, when you lead 2 championship runs and those kind of things that he's done, and I think he's only lost 1 game as a starter. I mean, how much do you really have to prove? But he's definitely a guy that, coming off that first loss, they've got to prove it all over again. And, he's a guy that could be a Heisman finalist and those kind of things. So I think definitely it'd be interesting to see where the Tigers go. But most preseason publications, what we have left, I mean, we have our revised top 25 out. They'll be number 1 in most of them.
Yeah, I would think they're going to win. I think their biggest challenges will be the teams in the SEC, and I think the SEC fans probably thrilled they're getting a 10-game conference schedule this year, and I think whoever comes out on top there is going to be really, really intriguing to watch.
Well, that's one of the positives of this 10-game conference-only deal that we're doing is we get to see that, and I think once SEC fans get a taste of that, they're not really going to want to go back in some ways. And you could see some conferences adopt a 9 or 10-game conference model. We'll see. But I think it's fun. I mean, the politics behind it's been fun to see the extra crossover games and people reacting to that. So it's certainly something that's going to be interesting as they go along.
Yeah, who would you like as your favorite in the SEC? Obviously, Alabama has got to be high up there. Who else do you think can make a good run this year?
Same teams, Alabama, LSU could be. I mean, they've got a lot coming back, even though they lost a lot more. Auburn in that division. But, I mean, Alabama, it always starts with them. They've got a ton of talent coming back, a ton of guys in our top 50 big board. Georgia and Florida will probably duke it out in the SEC East, and you wonder if Tennessee will factor in by maybe knocking off one of their biggest rivals. So all of those things are at work. I mean, that's the conference that, in the current setup, Mike, probably the best bet to have 2 playoff teams, just because of the numbers. And, if 2 teams are playoff worthy out of that conference, it wouldn't be a surprise at all.
Yeah, and I think the other playoff teams probably going to come from the Big 12. Oklahoma obviously expect to have a good year. What do you think about the Big 12 race?
Yeah, it always starts with Oklahoma. I mean, new quarterback. They've got a couple issues now. Kennedy Brooks opting out, and Trey Sermon obviously transferred to Ohio State, a decision that probably hurts now. But, I mean, that's a team that definitely has a lot of offensive talent, good receivers. Until somebody knocks them off, whether it's an Oklahoma State or a Texas or at TCU, even though they've got some quarterback issues as well, those are the teams kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think for sure, too. One thing I'm also intrigued by is this idea that some of these teams, especially like in the South, like in the SEC, the ACC, they talk about having some capacity of fans in the stadiums to support the teams. And I don't know about you, but I just don't think that's a good idea.
No, I mean, college football is not going to look like what we want it to look like, whether it's on even something as simple as college football game day, no crowds, tailgating, all those places and traditions we love about it aren't going to be 100% the same, and that's one of the drawbacks here. But we'll see what they do with stadiums. Sure, the COVID regulations will be high, but it's not going to be the same if the stadiums aren't full.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the fun of this is going to be, it's obviously, I think the college football playoff, if they do manage to do it with just the big 3 leagues, I think it'll be interesting to see if somebody outside the top 3 conferences are actually playing can get in there. Like maybe something from the AAC or beyond. I think that would be a fun storyline to see so I can go undefeated and make a run at it.
Well, this is the year to do it. So Cincinnati has that opportunity. Memphis has that opportunity. UCF, another program that's been really good, that they have an opportunity to do it. And those schools, they would have to go perfect, and I think they would need 2-loss chaos in the other 3 conferences. But this is certainly an opportunity for the AAC to push through. I know the state I live in, Ohio, has 8 FBS programs, and the only one playing is Cincinnati.
Yeah, for sure. And if you had to put like a guess out today, like who do you think would be the 4 teams that would make the playoff?
Well, I'm working on that now. I mean, it wouldn't deviate too much from what we already had. I mean, you had Clemson, you had Oklahoma, you had Alabama, and then you just try to figure out that 4th team. So if I was doing it off the top of my head, probably Georgia. I mean, maybe they, well, the thing is they play Alabama too, so they might have 2 losses. Either Georgia or a second SEC team would make sense. You just never know. I mean, that's something I got to get done is what's the playoff picture. But again, now you only have 76 schools playing, and in theory, there's 88 bowl spots. You literally don't have enough teams to fill the bowls at this point. So who knows what that means?
Yeah, I would guess some of the Big Ten, Pac-12 kind of bowls might consider shifting to the spring to follow those teams, if you might guess.
If they can do it, yeah. I mean, but again, a lot of those Big Ten bowls have SEC ties. I think they could do. It'll be a less is more type deal for the Bulls this year, where hopefully we can get some semblance of a New Year's Day 6. I think it really starts with the playoff. Can you get the playoff in?
Yeah, my last question is obviously before the year starts. I mean, the Heisman Trophy is going to be a bit different because Justin Fields or top contender is not probably going to be in the mix for if they stick to their original timetable of December. Like, who do you like as your Heisman favorites?
I mean, Trevor Lawrence, time is now. I mean, he's got everything else on his resume except for that. There'll be some guys in the SEC. I know there's some exciting players. But a guy like Sam Howell could make a run at it. Ian Book has been around forever. It will kind of depend on which SEC quarterback really steps up. You wonder, if LSU has a great year, do people maybe take a little bit of a longer look at a guy like Derek Stingley? His outstanding talent. I mean, he has been compared to Charles Woodson. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been able to be fortunate enough to vote on that award the last several years and hoping to do that again.
All right, Bill, thanks for all the time. I know you're very busy right now. Thanks for giving me a few minutes. Before I let you go, how can people follow you on social media and keep up with what you're writing in the sporting news?
Yeah, I'm at Bill Bender at sportingnews.com, and as usual, we'll have plenty of content leading up to the season. I know we've been able to touch base with you a few times during, and it's always a good conversation. So thanks for having me on, and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have a playoff. Maybe we'll talk to you again around that point.
Sounds great.
All right, and there you have it. That is Bill Bender talking college football. A lot of fun in that conversation. Hopefully they find a way to safely play these games, and the key word here, as Bill has alluded to, is safe. We want the athletes to be safe when they're playing the sport. Obviously, the athletes want to play, but there have to be protocols in place to make sure they're able to safely do their games and reduce the risk of playing a coronavirus situation. The pros have found ways. Sometimes some involve bubbles. Some involve frequent testing. There is a way. I think the 3 power conferences will be motivated to find that way to make it happen. Whether the situation around the campuses allows it remains to be seen. But up next, we'll go to the 2-minute drill, something I addressed earlier with Bill and the conversation, something I addressed last week, the idea of the fans in the stadiums. I have thoughts. Let's come up with the 2-minute drill right after this.